We have Lisa Chastain here. That when we talk to Lisa, she's looking at finances from a completely different perspective. She comes up from the education background. Her father was a union blue collar worker, so she didn't really understand money. But the beauty of understanding money and looking at money is that it's a skill that you can learn and build over time. It's not something that you're born into. It's something that you exercise, and the stronger you become, you're going to get better and better at money. Lisa now takes her clients and coaches them only just for their strength of their money muscles, builds them, grooms them, keeps them along for the long haul. She's been on Oprah before. She's been Entrepreneur Magazine. She's really everywhere. Raining in from the big Las Vegas, Nevada, where it's hot as hell and it's 30 degrees here today. And my dad loves to talk about the weather, so I'll let him hold that deep conversation for you later. But Lisa, we're so honored to have you on the podcast and hear a lot of your insight for our followers.
A further connection that you said, just chatting with Lisa before we started, is that she mentioned that in her 30s she went through like a revolution of finances, really, to educate herself. She had, she almost lost everything, something similar to what we went through. So we went through that same type of stories, that same type of voyage where you're at the bottom, you don't know what you're going to go, and you just have that resilient riches.
Build resilient riches.
And then money talks, and you're not afraid of it, but
you've done
that's a lot of what you're talking about.
Lisa, can you give us a couple minute background about you?
Sure. So born and raised in Vegas. If you don't know Vegas you would think is just the Strip, but it's actually very country. And I grew up on a dirt road, miles and miles away from the Strip. Lots of horse property, and we didn't have a ton of money growing up. So getting into the money industry was a huge learning curve for me. And you don't know what you don't know. And in my 30s, I realized that after having lost almost everything, I wasn't living my authentic life. I wasn't living what I wanted. I wasn't living my dream. It was all the things that I thought I should be as a good girl growing up, or what my parents taught me, or how I thought I was supposed to live. I did all the right things in my 20s. I got my college degree. I bought a house. I got married. I had a kid. I did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do in my 20s, and my life fell apart.
Checked all the boxes. Checked all the boxes.
Checked all the boxes. And then I woke up at some point, I don't remember exactly what age, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? I'm in a marriage that I'm absolutely miserable in. I'm not earning any money because I was a stay-at-home mom. I left my amazing, safe, cushy college career to stay home, left it, which a lot of women do. Right? I was like, well, I'm going to leave because I'm going to stay home and take care of my kid because that's what you're supposed to do. And then I had this awakening, like, this is not the life that I want at all. I have these big dreams, these big ambitions, these big aspirations, and I need to make some big changes. And that's where everything came to a head in my 30s. I was about 35 when that happened. And in terms of resiliency, I hit the reset button and restarted my life and started building from there, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing when people are able to reinvent themselves. You did it in your 30s, and I guess about a year ago, so you're 36 maximum, because you just revealed your age 44. To the world. 44.
I just turned 44.
Congratulations on the double four.
Still very young. Still very young. From my point of view, still very young.
And it's a very similar story to my dad, who actually reinvented himself in his late 50s when he came and joined my practice. My dad will speak longer than you, so I just want to keep him to a 2-minute timer. If you can tell us 2 minutes, kind of how you reinvented yourself and got into the money business.
Well, we also struggled a lot. I used to be in the jewelry business, and I had my own. We came from Canada, from Toronto. We came down with a couple $100 in my pocket with 4 kids. And just to keep it to the time budget that your has allocated to me.
I like the word budget. I like you threw in budget there.
It's always what we're thinking about now. Started off in the jewelry business through my father-in-law. Did that for a while. Had my own business for many years, and then business just changed. 9/11 hit, and a lot of the business went overseas. So went back into work for a hedge fund. Reinvented myself. I did have an MBA from when I was in school, and just went to a hedge fund where someone was willing to train me. So did that for 7 years. We bought corporate bankruptcy claims, and about 6 years ago, Yair asked me to leave the fund and come and join him.
Yeah, in the process of that, there was a lot of credit card debt and real challenges with our house, and money was something that was getting in between our family, which was something that it's really challenging for us when you're seeing at home, and we grew up in a wealthy town, and you're looking around, and they're like, do they have the same challenges as we do? And the answer was no. But you're able to also teach your kids. So I started the business, and I went, you know what? I love my family. I appreciate everything that they've done, but I don't. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, I'll see my parents when I retire," and I said, you know what? I want to be with my family. I enjoy it. I want to help. I want to help. I want to grow. It's something that I found where we're pretty nichey in the life insurance investment business, but very specific on helping people who have overcome obstacles build this resilience. That's really our niche, and that's really our type of client. So we could speak to people. And I went, let me bring my dad in, and I really need the help. It doesn't help. It doesn't hurt that he has, I would say, gray hair, but I don't see a lot of it. But
Not much left.
Just not much left.
His wisdom.
Wisdom hair. That's a good way to put it.
I would say one of the main areas, and I'm sure Lisa, you agree, is what we want to promote is money talks. Don't be afraid of it, and that's something that we went through. Through that transition time of jewelry to finance. We really were at the bottom and almost losing everything as similar to what you're saying. And just because you're afraid of it, you're afraid to wake up every day and see who's calling me to or ask me for money. I mean, they don't even realize and I kept that from my wife also. My wife didn't know about it because she would have like a huge meltdown and was not supportive. So every day you're wondering who's calling me today for money. How can I get out of this? And it just seems to be a bottom pit until you need someone like yourself as a coach, because you need help to get out of that deep, dark pool. You can't do it by yourself. So that's where we come in, talk about money. Don't be afraid of it. It's not something to be afraid of. We had help at the time. Also, that's the only way we got out of it. And I think that's something that you're offering as well.
And Lisa, now that we've when you're talking to people and you're going into it, it sounds like you're relating to a lot of people who have gone through similar challenges that you have. Is that accurate? And how are you getting them when they're coming to you and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm in debt. I'm in here. I'm in that." Like, how are you talking to people who are really going through? I would say the bottom, but there's always worse. So their current bottom. How are you getting them started?
So I share my story and I share the details of it for the purposes of people knowing that they're not alone. As a financial advisor, when I was a financial advisor, I was pulling money out of my IRA to keep my business afloat and my household afloat and keep my marriage together. And I was talking to no one about it. Not my business partners, not my best friends, no one. Because I felt like I needed to keep this persona of success and that I had everything together. And to your point, to your story, to my story, is that there are so many people in America who feel afraid and ashamed and lost.
Embarrassed about that they can't supply. They think that, and it's like what you were saying before was that you're checking the boxes and now you're not.
I'm not. And I was living a lie, and I was out there in the world projecting this successful person. And I felt like my life was in shambles behind the scenes. And who can relate to that? I think so many people can. And so I have a non-judgment, shame-free zone where I said, hey, let's just talk about it. I am not here to judge you. I'm here to support you. And I think that the money industry has perpetuated the shame and the guilt, especially personal finance right now, which I'm on a mission and a path to shift, because I think they're making people feel worse about themselves by talking about how bad debt is and you should never have debt and all the things. And then who wants to talk about it? Because then they're just more ashamed. They're more embarrassed. And if you're in a successful neighborhood, you don't want people to know that you're about to lose everything. Or feel like you're going to lose everything. Even if you're not, you might feel that way. We inherit a lot of that stuff. I mean, that's ancestral, generational mindset. There's lots of reasons that we feel the way that we feel about money. We got to open it up. We got to talk about it so we can break through it.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a big part of what we do. We call it money talks, and it's just talking about money when someone, let's say, is employed, and it's very common, let's say, amongst lawyers, doctors, professionals that have pretty obvious known salary levels.
Yep.
So a lawyer will be making $150,000 and he's been at the firm for 8 years, but he doesn't know that the guy sitting or girl sitting next to him is making $250,000. And because they don't want to talk about money and they're scared to talk about their salary and this and that and all this other stuff, they're not able to talk to the person next to them and they say, oh, I'm actually severely underpaid. I can go find another job, or talking to recruiters or just looking on LinkedIn. And I love that what's going on right now is there's this big push in New York that you're required to show salaries in your job description. So now it's open season for people to see, hey, am I underpaid? Because that's going to push price rate. That's going to push income wages up. That allows people to have some transparency. So I feel like I talk to people about my finances all the time. I talk to them about how I did it, and you're able to then, people are then able to learn if you're keeping everything so close to your chest, and if you're keeping, then other people are going to feel reserved. So we know people that are in debt, and all of a sudden they go, yeah, well, I'm in debt. I'm $300,000 in debt. We're like, where were you when you were $10,000 in debt? Or where were you when you first felt that the business was failing? How come we didn't talk about it then? Now you're in a hole, and there's ways to get out of it. You're not alone. There's tons and tons of people in this country. There's over $1 trillion of credit card debt. How are you breaking the stigma? Because that is your mission. How are you breaking the stigma? What are the concrete ways that you're doing this?
But just before you go on, I mean, sometimes, we have some clients also that they went to dental school, let's say, and they're making a lot of money now, but they had a lot of debt in dental school, maybe $500,000. So that's something also that has to be intact. Nothing that they did, nothing they did untoward. They are successful, but now they have this huge school debt that they have to get out of. We see that a lot as well.
Yeah, well, the student loans is like a whole different beast kind of conversation that, of course, the country is grappling with right now. But debt in general, what I tell my clients is that you didn't get into debt overnight. And it's been, for most people, it's a very slow accruing process of going into debt. And then you wake up someday and you're like, oh, I can't handle this anymore. Yeah, right. So like you can handle it.
You wake up. It's a turning point.
And you're like, I can't handle this anymore. Either a life event happens or you're just sick of it, whatever. And so I talk about debt openly, that it's not a bad thing, because if someone qualifies it as a bad thing, they're not going to want to talk about it because there's shame and guilt attached to it. So let's just handle it. Let's look at it together. I had a client, I said, let's just look at it. Can you just do that with me? Can we just take that first step and understand what's really going on? Because there's beliefs and then there's actual facts. And most of the time people swim in their beliefs and their emotions of money versus just looking at the facts of it. Yeah. And for one person, $10,000 in debt feels like a lot. And for another person, it feels like nothing.
Yeah.
So
part of it though, but part of it is that they're afraid that maybe they're going to have to do some changes, and people are afraid of that.
Maybe.
Yeah. And I want to give a couple some tips on just basic debt tips on if somebody is in debt, and we can just kind of rocket fire them, and maybe we'll do a little game that I do one, you do one, and Lisa does one, because we're all in the money business. I would say the easiest one for me is if you do have debt, and let's say your credit card debt's 25%, and you own a home and you can borrow against your home as a home equity line of credit at 9%, take the home equity line of credit, pay off the credit card debt. That's my first tip.
So I would say, I mean, if a person has, and I had a huge stack of credit cards at my highest or lowest, whatever, and each one has its associated interest rate. So my tip would be is that, you have some that are high, that have high interest rate and high amounts, and some that are maybe lower interest rates and lower amounts. So the ones that are lower amounts, get rid of those right away. Even if it's a low interest rate, if it's like $100, just get rid of it. That's going to ease your mind, because now your stack is going to get lower. Then you can attack the ones that are higher interest rates or higher amounts after that.
Lisa, your turn.
I would say stop debt dumping. People that are in debt all of a sudden want to throw all their excess cash, all of their cash to the debt, and think that that's somehow going to get them out of debt faster. Stop dumping on your debt. Get a strategy in place refinance.
How are you
first.
refinancing?
I think that the home equity line of credit is a great idea. I like the idea of chunking down the smaller debt first if you can. Also, there's some really great loans. Again, so if you're paying 30%, 29, 25% credit card debt, refinance it to a 10% loan. If you don't have a home equity line of credit, just get it down to lower debt.
Absolutely.
Get
And
it,
there's a lot.
and then you can chunk it out. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of banks, and we don't want to recommend any banks because they might go under and scam people. So we don't want
Sure.
we don't want to take that liability. But there's a lot of places out there that can actually help you out. I really am enjoying this topic. And I'm really liking these lightning rounds. So let's just talk about if you're somebody that is earning money, and let's talk about retirement for a second. You're somebody that's earning money and you're trying to save for retirement. What would be 3 ways? We'll each do one ways to save for retirement in the most efficient way possible. Lisa, you want to go first?
I can go first.
All right, Lisa.
Get going on your, if you have a 401k, at least contribute to the match. At a minimum, contribute to the match.
Dad.
I would say besides a 401k, we don't like to contribute more than the match if you have a 401k, but other vehicles that you can use for retirement income. Sometimes I got to go back. Permanent life insurance can be used for the long-term care, so you don't have a huge excess, but also it has the cash value that will be there. You can generate a guaranteed tax-free income for the rest of your life. It's even better than a 401k because a 401k will run out. Permanent life insurance, using the right vehicles, you'll have income for the rest of your life, guaranteed if you want to use the rider for the rest of your life.
Yeah, but not putting all your money into permanent life
Definitely
insurance,
not.
just another small
We always say you should be diversified.
a small asset class. It's much more for your conservative cash money sitting on the side. It's better than that. I tell people if you have a lot, my tip is if you have a lot of cash and you haven't maximized on your 401k, if you have a lot of cash sitting and doing nothing, or if you have brokerage accounts that you're saving for retirement, maximize your Roth 401k. So take the cash that you have, move your money from a taxable vehicle into a tax-free vehicle. Right now, the number is $22,500 for 2023. By the time this launches, it's going to be 2024. So it's going to be a higher number. So take that cash that you have, or take the brokerage account. You have to sell, you'll pay taxes, talk to your tax attorney. We're not your financial advisor, so we're not telling you to do this, but take that money and then move it into a tax-free vehicle. So just take it away from, I like to think Uncle Sam and Aunt Sally. I think there's 2 people taken from us.
I feel bad because we sort of monopolized it. Lisa, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about further that we've sort of monopolized?
Well, you mentioned the budgeting thing.
Yeah.
And I'm actually on a mission to shift that conversation because there's a lot of people who hate budgeting who aren't going to budget. So I'm on a mission to say, stop budgeting, stop lying to yourself that you're going to budget. And there are some simpler ways for you to manage your cash flow that don't have to be so analytical. It's important you look at your money, and it's really important that you have a game plan. I'd rather see you game plan your money than try to budget if you're not going to do it, because there's a lot of people who think they have to, and then they don't. And then it just creates this cycle of shame. So stop it. Just stop it.
Guilt.
All right. So let's do 3 tips on the non-budgeting budgeters. How's that?
Okay. I like that.
All right.
Start with Lisa this time.
No, Lisa went first last time.
All right, so your turn.
No, your turn. I went first the first time.
Oh, okay. So what are we asking again? The
Tips.
non-budgeting budget?
Tips to budget without budgeting.
All right. So I have to back up a little bit because what we do as part of our financial fact find is just to do a simple budget. You know, you don't have to overcomplicate it. It doesn't have to be done. We had one client that they made it their Saturday night date to go through their budget together. You don't have to spend that kind of time, but at least you get an idea of where you are today, put the numbers together just to get an idea of where your cash flow. And as you've said, many people, that's the last time they're going to look at it, but at least once a year, we do an annual review. So at least once a year, this gives us a foundation on which to grow from. Okay, so we did this last year. This is what we're looking at. What's changed? So at least you have to, from my point of view, at least you have to know where you are so you know where you can go.
Agreed.
That was a terrible tip. Tell us your tip.
What is that?
Oh, it was to
Do it at least once a year.
Okay, fine.
But in a simplified way, at least so you know where you're going to go.
All right, I'll be number 2 because Lisa.
Such a terrible tip. Was that a terrible tip, Lisa?
Know where you are so you know where you want to go. Most people don't even know where they are.
Exactly. Is that such a terrible tip like you're saying? I don't think so.
No, Lisa's from Nevada. They're much nicer than
sometimes
these.
She stops, but sometimes he stops listening to me in the halfway through.
Yeah, that's what happened.
I think that's what happened.
I like The Richest Man in Babylon. That's one of my favorite books. It was the first book I was given for one of my biggest clients who was on the podcast before, Eyal Yecheskel, one of my favorite people in the world.
Didn't he come on our podcast?
Yeah, I said he did come on our podcast.
Okay. I wasn't listening.
No. But he gave me the book Richest Man in Babylon, which is pay yourself first. That's the whole concept of the whole book. You could skip it. I just read it to you. Pay yourself first. And what that means is setting up structured transfers from your bank account into a separate account that's for your retirement, for your home, for something that you desire for yourself. Do that first. After that, then deal with your expenses. So first pay yourself first. And then all of a sudden you'll run out of money at the end of the day and your budget will tighten. So you look at your account, you're like, well, I don't have any more cash in my bank. I don't have any more cash. So I can't go out to that restaurant. But if you do the restaurant and the dining and all the other stuff first, then when you actually want to pay yourself and put money away for your real goals, your big goals, it's not going to be there. So that's my tip.
It actually works well with what we were talking about before. When you have like a permanent life insurance plan, you have it just to like I said, and forget it. So that money can come out right off the top.
That's part of it.
And at the end, 20 years, you have money that you never knew you had.
All right, so let's talk about what do you talk to your clients?
Give us her tip.
Yeah,
Can I give my tip?
I thought you did.
No, she didn't.
Oh, sorry. Go.
Not listening.
Open a spending account. So in the same lane of having a savings account that you're paying yourself first, put money in a spending account once a week. That's the money that you have to spend. That creates freedom. All the other money in your bills account, your savings account is to work, but we have to give ourselves permission to spend. The scarcity conversation in finance right now is hurting people. So give yourself permission to spend. Figure out what that number is every single week and put it in a spending account. And then just keep an eye on that account. Because if you automate savings and you automate your bills, then you have money to spend. And that is a game changer.
I love it. Yeah, that was a much better tip than ours.
I like that idea.
Yours rambled on, mine rambled on too. Let's talk about this. This is a very big problem in this country, aging parents. Mm-hmm. So what are you talking to clients about aging parents? And then we'll do our last rapid fire game.
I'm not so aging. Are you saying I'm aging already?
Aging grandparents.
I think we could do a whole episode on aging parents. I have a lot of clients in their 40s and 50s whose parents did not set themselves up financially, who feel like it's their responsibility to now take care of the parent. And so we have to open up that conversation and make sure that you're in a position to take care of your parents financially. Otherwise, they're going to take you down with them.
I would suggest, like what we see with some of our clients is that, definitely what you said is 100% correct. And sometimes it's usually one sibling out of a bunch, how many, 2, 3, or 4 that takes on that responsibility. And they, I speak to them, well, why don't you speak to your brother or your sister about saying, oh, I don't want to. Mm-hmm. So I think just in addition to your tip is that, they shouldn't feel it's their sole responsibility, but that they should want to, and she should actively and require it to be shared among all the siblings.
Yeah, agreed.
Sorry, continue, Lisa. You were interrupted.
Well, I think there's some really healthy setups. We're finding, especially in Las Vegas, I don't know about on the East Coast, but there are a lot of generational homes being built for that reason. And younger adults are staying home longer. So they're making sense of it. They're bringing their resources together and they're figuring it out. So that's actually, I think, a really great strategy as long as the aging parent has the same vision. I think vision has everything to do with it. If they have the same vision and they all want to live together and figure that out, that's awesome. But make sure you're all operating out of the same vision.
Yeah, I think it's having conversations with your family is really really important. I don't want to over life insurance it, but just make sure that you're prepared for death. That is a very big expense. You can do it through insurance. You can do it just to have an account that you're just putting to the side, because that's going to be a real expense, and that's something that gets really stressful at the time. But making sure that you have the money ready for that moment is a really big deal.
But besides just the death aspect of it, is the long-term care aspect. That's a huge That's that can be a huge expense, and make sure some policies you can pay your caregiver, which is your daughter or son or someone in the
Right.
family. You're able to pay them directly, and you're able to stay in your own home. There's a lot of different options if it's done early enough.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of creative ways. And when you're talking to someone like you, a lot of people get really intimidated because they go, how the costs and the fear of actually affording a coach. So, and I find a big problem in this country that I'm on a mission to solve or to help with. I don't think solve, but I can help with, is that the good advisors won't, the quality advisors, because there's not many quality, because it's not so hard to become what we do. The good advisors typically do not take clients under a profitable number. So that if you go to Merrill Lynch, they won't talk to you unless you have $1 million in investable assets. In my world, that's a lot of money. Like that's serious. Some companies like a Goldman or Morgan Stanley or whatever it is, it's like it's ridiculous. $5 million. Like that's a serious number. I had a client, I didn't tell you this. I had a client call me up and he's at Morgan Stanley and he wants to switch his advisors because his advisor's a schmo. And he calls me up and he says to me, he goes, I got $4 million or $4.5 million. I want to switch advisors. And I said, well, I have these advisors that I like, that I recommend. He goes, well, do you think that I'll meet their minimum? And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? You're making like $2 million a year. Like you're not going to meet their minimum. Like it's a ridiculous question. How are you, when people are scared to pay for services, what is the conversation you're having?
Well, the two main objections that we get in sales are time and money. And that's every sales conversation. So you can stay afraid to invest in yourself and stay exactly where you are today, or you can take a risk and invest in yourself and get new results. The choice is yours. For me, I show them what it would look like to make the investment in coaching and what could be possible for them as a result of that coaching and support. And it's not just me that they're getting. I have a whole network of financial professionals in my world. So find somebody that's trustworthy, make the investment, because it's just coaching fees. It's like, you find the money. Even if you have to put it on a credit card, my job as a money coach is to help you figure out how to navigate that. I'm not going to sell you something and then disappear. So I feel like with the right money coach, making an investment with a financial professional or a money coach, we're here to help you make more money in the long run. You have to understand that there's a return on that investment. That's my job, to help you to get a return on that investment.
Absolutely.
So once we figure that out, they're like, okay, I get it. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's a really great point, and we're probably going to take that point.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a really, really great point. And what I really like what you're saying is it's my job to help you understand how to put me in the budget, or how to ask for help. And what's really amazing, and I think that was deep that you said, it was deep, is that a financial advisor, and I find a quality financial advisor or a financial coach, really has a capacity. They don't have an unscalable. They can only really be with 400, 500, 600, maybe 700 true quality clients.
Right.
You can't. That means that you have the ability to interview and to talk to other advisors to find the right fit. It's the same thing with a therapist. A therapist only has so much capacity, but you got to find someone that actually you can relate to, which sounds like you're getting really deep with your clients. The question we always have in the podcast is, it's called Resilient Riches. And what we look to find is your defining moment, which you kind of alluded to at the beginning. If there a moment in your life that was that defining moment that you said, I will never go back and I'm going to make it? Because you said you worked in the financial advisory, but you didn't make it. And then you kept pushing. So it's a level of resilience to actually keep pushing even when things are against you. What was your defining moment, Lisa?
In July of 2016, I knew that if I didn't do something different, I was going to be out of money and out of time. I was watching my savings dwindle. I was at a crossroads in my career, and I had a conversation with a coach. I'd never hired a coach before, never paid the kind of money that she was asking for. And I knew that if I didn't make this investment, it would be worse off than if I did. So July of 2016, I paid my coach $10,000. I had $20,000 left to my name.
Wow.
And I said, I'm all in. I flew out to New Jersey and I changed my life. In that 10 months, in that first 10 months of working with her, I made $128,000, more money than I'd ever made in my life in that amount of time.
It's amazing.
So it's betting on myself and saying, there's no going back. This is the day that I'm going to change my life.
And the courage that you showed and the resilience that you showed.
We have a young advisor that he's going to cry when I mention this. I said he's having a challenge right now, getting through and really pushing through to make it in this business. And I said to him, I said, I've helped you financially to get started. Your dad has helped you financially to get started. The insurance companies have helped you financially get started, but you haven't invested on yourself. So don't tell me that you're struggling when you haven't even put your own money behind you. So you don't even truly believe in yourself. But Lisa,
I said to him also, this is really when you become successful, when you decide this path, when you're in the trenches. So far you've been, skating over it nice and light, dipping in. But now when you really need it, that's when you become successful.
So
I'm not sure if he heard me or not.
Well, we have a review with him today, and I'm gonna elaborate on it. But Lisa, how can people find you? Can you tell us kind of where people can connect with you? You're doing it. It sounds like you're doing incredible work. You're changing lives, which we love. And it's a beautiful thing when financial professionals can come together in a room, share notes, because we all live in. If your real cause is to help prove and change financial literacy for other people, you don't need to hoard that cause. That cause can be, you need soldiers and you need an army to do it. How can people find you?
The easiest way is to go to lisachastain.com. You can click the Get Started button and someone on my team will be in touch with you and plug you in the right place. Or just follow me and send me a message on Instagram, which is Savvy Money with Lisa.
I love it. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on. We look forward to seeing you again on the podcast. Hopefully, if you fly to New York, we can hang out with you and we can do this in person.
Even New Jersey.
And we'll play a lot of games. And I thought I loved the games. I loved all that we did. And this is probably the most money coaching that we've done. My dad life insurance to us today.
Not so much. It wasn't so terrible.
It was enough. But no one likes. You're not the sexy guy at the party when you're talking about life insurance.
That's not what I'm trying to be.
He's happily married.
That's fine.
Lisa, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll see you soon.